Today's concept is Vietnam. Vietnam has a historical significance in the history of Vietnam because Vietnam's struggle is not with one nation, they have to fight with two nations. At the same time, the fight between themselves was fueled by the other superpower nations. So let us see what happened stepwise in detail, what made the procedure of Vietnam to go into such a crucial things, and finally how did Vietnam come out of these kind of problems or the issues. Now, why did I say that Vietnam has to fight with two colonial masters? One is the French. As usual, Vietnam was colonized by French as it was India colonized by the Britishers. They ruled same as India was ruled by the Britishers by putting a puppet in the name of the king and controlled it as per their remote senses. Now, the situation, then why did we come to the second power coming entry into the Vietnam? See here, the second power is the Japan. Japan comes far late into the picture when compared to the French introduction. Now let us deal with French first, then let us enter into the Japanese entry into the Vietnam. Now, what is the plan of French in establishing control over the Vietnam? Vietnam is a place where it is located in the eastern part, southeastern part of Asia. Its location is 15 degrees latitude and 105 degrees longitude. Now if you see the location of Vietnam, it is in the very closer edge of the part. The Vietnam is having surrounded by water bodies, and the very close country to Vietnam is Laos. We have the maritime boundaries of Indonesia, Java, Malacca, Sumatra and all these countries. Now from this we can get to the picture of clarity that Vietnam is a place where we can do agriculture more. As per the location of Vietnam, we can get into the clarity that Vietnam is very close to the equator. The lands which are very close to the equator or the equatorial points or nearby to equator, they receive heavy amount of sunrise which will cope up them to do good cultivation. In this process of doing cultivation, we need good sunrise. So we need the sun rays of sun which is nearby to the equator. So the French people who know basically what is the importance of sun, and in French we don't have the temperatures more than 20 degrees. So they plan to develop Vietnam as an agricultural nation, and so that they could export the rice from Vietnam to the other nations. In the gradual process of establishing control over Vietnam, they established a puppet king, they removed the earlier king Nhan, and they established a puppet king according to their wish. They started to do the investments and they started to develop the things which are necessary for them, which in turn intended into the development of exports, landlordism and peasants. Coming to the exports, landlordisms and peasants, the French people had a threefold idea of the development. That is, first point is we have to develop the irrigation. The second point what we have to develop is the infrastructure of landlords. The third point is marketing. These three strategies are called threefold development strategy of French people or the France. Now coming to here, in irrigation, as we all know, to develop a nation in the agricultural sphere or sector, we have to supply water for the fields. The supply of water for the fields through water or canals is known as irrigation. Now coming to the irrigation facilities of Vietnam, the Vietnam has a very good water supply and it has only a minor regions where we can't get the supply of water for it. So the regions which are not getting the water supply near the regions of the Mekong Delta, many canals and rivers were diverted to get the water supply for it. These all steps were in a huge way, they built small canals to connect the fields so that every field will get water supply for it. This is the plan and the ideology of the French people in getting the infrastructure, especially the irrigation, to be done. And at the same time they are very clever and cautious that they don't give any chance for the people to stand against them and to go up for the revolt. So they have planned to establish the landlordship. The landlords will maintain the lands under them, and they force the people, those who are small peasants and the landless labor, to work under them for very less wages or to go for the forced labor system. In case the small farmer cannot repay the loan back, the landlords can take over their lands and hand it over to the under their own control, so that automatically the small landless person becomes a labor. So in this process, they want landlords to get negative to the people, not the French people directly. So the intention of the French people is that in case in future if any resistance comes, that resistance should be between the landlords and the landless people, not between the French people and the landless laborers, so that they are building a barricade between them and the revolution. This is the ideology or ideal strategy of the French people in the second of landlordism. The landlords were supported by the French people, and the landlords are forced to give share for the French government whenever it is necessary in their profits. So depending on these bilateral calculations, both of them have agreed and put forward their views. And coming to the third one, marketing. To do marketing, we need the connectivity of the products from the local areas to the national and the international areas. So they started to develop the road transport, rail transport in this way, so that the product can be carried to the nearest places where we can get the best market. So by 1931, with the efforts and plannings of the French people, it became the third largest producer of rice in the world. It started to produce in the world, placing third the rice, and the total amount of rice produced in Vietnam, among that 2/3 of the rice is exported by the French people to the other nations. In this process, the people are forced to get to work here, and they are landless people, so they were compulsory using the concept of forced labor. What is the meaning of the word forced labor? Here, a labor is a person who works to get his livelihood or daily wages, or as per his requirements, the food, bread or something else. But when it comes to forced labor, the person is not having any choice when coming to the work. He has to work according to the requirement of his landlord or the owner or the person who is dictating him. He can't question him, or he can't even ask him to give some wage or something, or bread or food for whatever the work he has done. This kind of concept is called as forced labor. In this process of development of Vietnam in an agricultural field, the French has invested very little of their own, but they have forced the people to do the canal work, to build the roads, to build the railway tracks, to build the bridges, to do all these things under the concept of the forced labor. Really, they did not invest much on the infrastructure, but the output, that is the price production, has been taken away much. It's 70% is taken away by the French people, and they used to sell it in the abroad markets and used to get higher margins, in which the landlords also used to take a keen interest on that. So in the process of making Vietnam a large agricultural nation, we can see the exports have played a very vital role for us. Coming to the landlordism, landlords are the key connectivity between the French revolutionary people or the government people versus the peasants, the normal people. Now these three words are interlinked in the life of the Vietnam farmers. See here, the irrigation facilities are improved by making the people to work with the forced labor. The canals, the routes, everything were done by the people. Here they are forced to do it at very less cost or no cost. And the second concept is they are backed by landlords. The landlords are the local people who may influence the other landless people to work for them at very less cost. This will make them to work at the very considerable low rate level. And the marketing brought the roads and railways infrastructure for the Vietnam, through which we can transport the entire product from one place to the another place. In this way, the exports, the landlordism and the peasants have played a very vital role, and in the transition of this period or the getting the transformation here, many people at many places, the landless small peasants were turned into landless people because of the atrocities which were kept by the landlords, and we don't have any financiers who are going to help them, so they are bound to take money from the landlords, which made them to get landless people very soon. As per the statistics,